What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing well. I'm super excited about today's episode because I'm going to be talking about sleep. We spend 30% of our entire life doing it, but nobody ever taught us how to do it right. Today is the day we're going to cover the 5 C's of beautiful sleep. However, there's a little bit of irony in this episode because I am currently sleep deprived. In fact, if you read through my show notes, you'll see that I have a shout out specifically to parents with new infants in the house to tell you, I'm sorry, I know I'm preaching to the choir, there's absolutely no help for you in the world, and I'm here to tell you from personal experience that that is absolutely true. If you're listening to this show and you have a new baby in the house, stop listening right now and go listen to my show in the show notes called How to Work Out While Sleep Deprived. It'll be far more applicable to you and you will actually be able to implement it. But today, if you're not a person with an infant under 3 months old in the house, then this show is going to help you. So get super stoked. The only piece of housekeeping that I want to take care of before we jump into the 5 C's of sleeping beautifully is go to patreon.com/definingdadbod and support the show. Whether you're new or you've been following us for a bit, now is the time to raise your hand in support of the Defining Dad Bod movement. First of all, because I've made a lot of changes to the Patreon page and I think our rewards are better than ever. We've got a new friends and family program that is going to fill up fast if you don't get on it now, cheaper access to the Defining Dad Bod Inner Circle, and some amazing stuff coming out on our YouTube channel, in addition to the lives that I do every Friday on the Defining Dad Bod Inner Circle. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Defining Dad Bod on Patreon, and it's been a fantastic journey. Thank you to those of you who are currently supporting us. And if you aren't already, go to patreon.com/definingdadbod. I would say something more beautiful and magical, I'm sure, to sell you on it, but one, I don't want to have to sell you on something I think is really cool and really important. You should just do it because it's awesome. And two, I'm sleep deprived, so I'm going to save some of my intellectual willpower to talk to you about how to sleep well. And yes, the irony is not lost on me, and yes, there will be some baby jokes in this episode. So without further ado, 5 C's to sleeping like a champ, as opposed to sleeping like a chump. Now, sleep is a deeply important part of any health and fitness regimen, and yet reportedly 30% of the population struggle to get good quality, good quantity sleep on a regular basis. Chances are, if you're listening to this right now, you've either struggled to get to bed at a good time, to stay asleep all night long, to wake up feeling rested, or to prioritize bettering your sleep over other things. And if you haven't struggled, you don't have kids, and you will eventually struggle with sleep, I promise. Why is it so important? Actually, that's kind of a tricky question. For all the research we've done, especially on the brain, it seems kind of funny to me that we know very little about how sleep actually works. Like, why can't I just lay in bed and think, go to sleep, and boom, it happens? I have an easier time jumping on a 4-foot-tall box than falling asleep sometimes. And why is the lowest point for my willpower for the day when my alarm goes off? Seems like no matter how good your intentions are or how deeply powerful you want to make your morning, it really doesn't matter when the snooze button is so close. Ugh, and those extra 3 minutes of sleep are like sacred and beautiful till the alarm goes off again. And then it ruins your morning. But really though, there's a large amount of information we could talk about with regard to what we do know about sleep and what we don't know about sleep. But I'm going to hit the 3 high points. The first thing you need to know about why sleep is so important and why you need to listen to this show and implement these 5 C's immediately is because sleep regulates your cortisol curve. Cortisol, also known as the stress hormone, is your hormone as a diurnal mammal, meaning you like to be awake during the day, as opposed to flying squirrels, which are nocturnal mammals who like to be awake during the nighttime. This means that naturally your cortisol should be nice and high in the morning and then taper off throughout the day at a nice steady slope and reach the lowest point it's going to reach as you're getting ready for bed, basically following the pattern of sunlight in the day. Diurnal mammal. Write that down and use it in a sentence 5 times today. As a diurnal mammal, sleep is extremely important for regulating that cortisol curve and allowing you to recover powerfully. If you're sleeping poorly and your cortisol curve is thrown off because of it, you will find yourself with crazy cravings, you'll find yourself not recovering well and more sore from your workouts than you need to be. So number 1 reason sleep is extremely important is it regulates your cortisol curve as a diurnal mammal. Secondly, one of the stages of sleep is called rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. In this stage of sleep is responsible for crazy dreams, for crazy rapid eye movements, and in people like Mike Birbiglia, crazy sleepwalking and jumping out of windows. You don't know what I'm talking about? YouTube Mike Birbiglia La Quinta In and get ready to laugh. Among many functions, REM sleep seems to be an important component of being able to remember the things that you learned today by solidifying the neural connections that you taught to fire together. Or in layman's terms, if you don't get enough REM sleep, you're much dumber tomorrow than you were yesterday, and you won't have any good fodder for conversation when your 3-year-old tells you that he had a dream about zombies and dragons last night. I mean, how else are you supposed to teach him to fight zombies and dragons in his dream if you yourself are not fighting those battles nightly? REM sleep, extremely important for the neural connections in the mind to solidify memories and to learn new things. Which brings me to the third part of why sleep is extremely important, the deep stage of sleep. Deep sleep, or delta wave sleep, is a state of sleep where it seems your mind is almost completely turned off. This stage of sleep is why we can say things like sleeping like the dead, because in this stage of sleep, you barely move, you don't breathe much, you're very hard to wake, and it's possible you don't even dream. However, in studies of delta wave sleep, they found that if you don't get enough delta wave sleep, you find yourself less coordinated, less able to recover from yesterday's workout, and less likely to show improved performance on new biomechanical tasks. This is the stage of sleep that generally gets sacrificed when people are waking up regularly during the night, and therefore would be directly responsible for mal-recovered workout programs, higher risks of injury, and reduced adaptive results from your workouts. You might be fascinated to know that though there's some genetic variation, adult Homo sapiens, that's you and me, take approximately 4 to 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep to enter meaningful deep sleep cycles. And these deep sleep cycles are so important to the muscle growing process that resources like bodybuilding.com and Men's Fitness have called sleep one of the most important muscle gaining supplements. Another sidebar, I couldn't help but notice that sleep doesn't actually come in liquid or pill form. If anybody listening has any ideas how to bring a product like that to market, let me know, and we will affiliate immediately. Because you'll be a billionaire, and I'll be your first customer. Hashtag babies sleep like garbage. So yeah, Alex, sleep is important, great. But I don't sleep well. How do I fix it? I'm so glad you asked. How weird is it that we spend 25 to 30% of our lives doing something that nobody ever taught us how to do well? If you sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, which is the average amount that the average human should be getting, I say that begrudgingly, by the way, because I'm getting 5 hours of very broken sleep nightly. I'm not the least bit bitter, by the way. But that's more time spent than even eating, showering, and Netflixing combined. I remember in college, one of my particularly driven and productive friends tried really hard for a month to shorten his sleep cycles. He made the argument that if he could sleep 6 hours a night instead of 7 hours a night, then he would effectively gain 365 productive hours per year, and over the span of his lifetime, over 10,000 hours of productive time, which is enough time to become a master of a skill or a craft. Much to his chagrin, he found that no amount of behavioral pressure can change your epigenetic predisposition toward how much sleep you need. In short, waking up earlier doesn't change your genes, and therefore there's a certain amount of sleep you'll probably do best with, and that was decided at conception for you. So there's that. Think of it like this. Your lifestyle and your biology demand a certain quality and quantity of sleep of you in order to manifest the best version of yourself today. And if you're not getting that quality and quantity of sleep, you won't die necessarily, but you'll have poor energy. You won't be in great health. You'll crave strange things. You'll lose your willpower really quickly and snap at your kids. You'll record a podcast with a lot of rabbit trails. And, probably most relevant to the world of health and fitness, you will cease to get positive adaptations from your exercise program. So for whatever reason that you're trying to improve your quality and quantity of sleep, I've put together these 5 C's of sleeping like a champ just for you. And I hope you'll put them into practice, if not for any other reason, so that I can live vicariously through you. Since currently my 3-week-old is putting me through Navy SEAL-style sleep deprivation, and I hope that through some due diligence of mine, other people in the world might enjoy a great night's rest for me. So the first C of sleeping like a champ is curfew. Say it with me, curfew. That's the best C word I could come up with for a bedtime. Yeah, I know you're an adult, and bedtime should have ended when you were a kid, right? Wrong. Sleep didn't become any less important when you became an adult. You just currently lack a parent who's ready for you to go to bed because they like some quiet time before they do as well. You see, you are a diurnal mammal, like I said earlier, and a diurnal mammal's waking periods are regulated by cortisol. Think of cortisol as a slow-moving train, Every single day, the pattern of cortisol is solidified in you a little bit more than the day before. And to change that pattern takes an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of consistency. Your body does best when cortisol spikes in the morning at the same time every day and bottoms out in the evening at the same time every night. If you don't have a bedtime, then you never give your body the chance to create a solidified pattern of cortisol highs and cortisol lows. In fact, just 3 days a week of abnormal sleeping patterns time-wise found participants in a recent study with altered insulin, cortisol, and appetites. What does that mean? Well, if you normally go to bed at 10 p.m., but you stay up late 3 times this week to catch the rest of your show, or you have a 3-day weekend, and so you sleep in on each of those 3 days, then congratulations, you have successfully altered your cortisol function, and not for the better. Just like when you were a kid, your body's cortisol curve needs a regular sleep time and regular wake time. And when people don't abide by the first C, curfew, that is setting a bedtime for yourself, I hear things in a consultation like, I just have trouble sleeping. I lay there and stare at the ceiling. Or when my alarm goes off in the morning, I just can't get out of bed. I keep hitting snooze. Or I just don't get it. I catch up on sleep on the weekends, but it seems like the more sleep I get, the more tired I feel. I could keep bringing you quotes, but I think you get the idea. If you want to stop sleeping like a chump, mind your curfew. The second C for sleeping like a champ rather than the chump is curtains. Remember my little diatribe about you being a diurnal mammal and waking with the light and going to sleep with the darkness? That is so built into you biologically that light can have an effect on your cortisol curve. Until the Industrial Revolution made artificial light possible, and now in our day and age having screens all over the place, this wasn't really a huge problem. But now the average person is exposed to large amounts of light even up until the moment they're about to fall asleep. Yes, I'm talking to you, bedside Facebook scrollers. You see, one of the primary biochemicals in your body that regulates your sleep cycle is called melatonin. It's naturally released by the brain when it's time to go to bed. However, if cortisol's high when melatonin's released, then cortisol will metabolize the melatonin. Do you know one of the things that can elevate cortisol automatically? You might have guessed it, light. So within 2 hours of bedtime, I suggest you start dimming the lights around the house, if not shutting them off completely. Also, limit screen time, like cell phones, TV, and video games. Wait, Alex, that's how I wind down. Fine, at least turn the brightness down, since the intensity of light is directly related to the increase in cortisol. And for those of you who are ready to try a significant lifestyle change moving away from cell phones and the TV, crack open a book instead, or start a gratitude journal. You might be asking yourself why the second C is called curtains at all, since I've only referenced them once. When I was a young bachelor living in Dallas, I had less than zero desire to decorate the inside of my house. I thought my blinds were fine, but I didn't realize how much the light of the city was affecting my sleep until my now wife, who has a fantastic eye for interior decorating, got us some blackout curtains that also incidentally accented our duvet, another thing I didn't have as a bachelor. But I can't even begin to describe to you how much deeper and fuller my sleep was and how much more well-rested I was when she put her woman's touch on our room in the form of some awesome curtains. So the second C goes to you, honey. And for the rest of you, if you want to stop sleeping like a chump, turn off lights and close your curtains. The third C of sleeping like a champ is cool. You might be fascinated to know that your body has to drop at least 2 degrees in order to enter a sleep state. That means just before you fall asleep, there's a large dumping of heat that occurs from your body to the air around it. If this cooling doesn't happen adequately, either before or even during sleep, then the body will become overheated and you'll be unable to enter or stay in the deeper stages of sleep. For many of the clients that I've worked with who report waking up regularly throughout the night, dropping their thermostat just a couple of degrees and getting a lighter blanket was all that was required to help their body get into deeper stages of sleep and stay there. However, there's a caveat to this, and that is, if you're too cold, you'll wake up throughout the night as well. So I've found it takes some experimentation for people to find what the best setting for their thermostat is and the best blanket and position for allowing them to sleep well. I'm going to talk about negotiating good sleep habits with your spouse momentarily. I'm going to talk about negotiating good sleep habits with your significant other in a bit. But anecdotally, I will say that I've found that I like the room a lot colder than my wife would prefer it. So we've negotiated a middle ground, and while she sleeps wrapped up in her blankets, I sleep on my side with just one leg under the covers, and that seems to be the nice healthy medium for both of us. Or at least that's how we used to sleep before a kid woke us up every 2 hours, which again, I'm not bitter about. But for those of you not wrestling with an infant right now, stop sleeping like a chump and cool off your room. The fourth C has to do with the food you eat, carbs. Especially before bed, the consumption of simple carbohydrates will definitely throw off your blood sugar. What the heck does that have to do with sleep, Alex? Well, you might be fascinated to know, especially if you did not follow our Overcoming Obesity series, parts 2 and 3 specifically, that your blood sugar regulation is deeply related to your cortisol. In fact, biologically, your body is designed to release cortisol when you reach a low blood sugar. So let's say you eat some ice cream before bed. Ice cream is packed with some simple carbohydrates, and once upon a time was my favorite nighttime snack. Not so much now because of defining dad bod and all that. But if you eat some ice cream, that sugar enters your bloodstream very quickly. And over the next 2 hours, you're going to experience a blood sugar high, then a blood sugar crash as insulin's released into the bloodstream to get the glucose out of your system and into your cells. While you're falling asleep, that's not a big deal. But after you've been asleep for 2 to 3 hours, the crashing blood sugar signals your body to release cortisol. You could think of it as an internal stressor. And that internal stress is signaling the body to internally raise blood sugar by breaking down glycogen. Cortisol is really good at that. And so from an evolutionary standpoint, if you're running from a mountain lion, this is an excellent system. You want cortisol to break down glycogen so that your blood sugar doesn't bottom out and then you faint and get eaten. But we're not running from a mountain lion. We're trying to sleep. And while trying to sleep, your blood sugar should stay nice and stable with no cortisol spikes resulting from blood sugar crashes. So the fourth C of sleeping like a champ is to remind you, let's cut down on the carbs just before bedtime. If you're hungry, get something with protein, fat, and fiber in it. Those break down much more slowly and will help stabilize your blood sugar over the nighttime. And after a couple nights of laying off the ice cream, I promise you'll sleep much better. My personal favorite nighttime snack is some full-fat Greek yogurt with some chocolate greens added to it. It's a lot like pudding, only much higher protein, much higher fat, and a much higher nutrient content. An added bonus is that Greek yogurt is a great source of casein, which is a very slow to break down protein and can feed your muscles overnight. A lot of bodybuilders and physique competitors swear by it. I'm neither, but I appreciate the meal plan hack of having chocolate pudding before bed. That's not really chocolate pudding. If you want some more snack ideas, get on our newsletter. The link's in the description below. But until then, if you want to stop sleeping like a chump, let's get smart about your carbohydrates. The last of the 5 C's for how to sleep like a champ is capsules. Now, I joked earlier that the person who could invent sleep in pill form would be a billionaire. And that's because there's no supplement in the world that can stand in for a good night's sleep. At least not yet. Maybe someday. But currently, there are supplements on the market that have been well researched to have a positive impact on sleep cycles. Now, I have a broader message about supplements talking about the quality and quantity of supplements in an exercise program. If you haven't heard that philosophy yet, I encourage you to check it out after you're done listening to this episode. That link is in the description below as well, and it's episode 8, What You Need to Know About Supplements. But specifically with regard to sleep, I have 4 that I want to cover with you. The first is L-theanine. L-theanine is an antioxidant that is naturally occurring in green tea. However, taken in supplement form, you're actually getting the benefits of it, minus the caffeine that you're also finding in green tea as well. L-theanine has been called a nootropic, meaning a chemical compound that acts on the mind. And studies actually show that it improves mental focus and has a calming effect. So for my clients, I generally recommend that you take a dose of L-theanine just before bed if you're someone who feels tired but experiences the racing mind just before sleep. If that's you, you know what I'm talking about. You lay there, very tired, exhausted from the day, but your mind's moving 100 miles a minute, going over what needs to happen tomorrow, what you could have done better today. Oh my God, is the baby still breathing? It's not magic, but the calm and mental focus that come with supplementing with L-theanine may help to stave off that acute anxiety so that you can fall into a deep sleep. The second supplement I'd recommend is GABA, specifically a version called PharmaGABA. It's the supplement form of an important neurotransmitter that, among other things, is responsible for helping you reach the deeper stages of sleep. Take this one before bed if you have a problem staying asleep. 2 notes on this. Studies show that GABA can be effective for deepening your sleep cycles. However, at about the 4-week mark, there's the possibility of increased anxiety in some people. So I recommend GABA to my clients for short periods of time to help them get deep, restful sleep and hopefully solidify that biological habit for the body. The second note is that there are a lot of GABA supplements out there, and the neurotransmitter is only helpful if it actually reaches the brain. And you might be fascinated to know that swallowing a pill that goes through the stomach and makes it to the brain is actually a tougher business than you might think. So I have a link in the description below to the one that I generally recommend to my clients. That's not going to be a waste of your money and end up in your urine. The third capsule that I recommend to help with sleep is called Relora. Relora is an adaptogen that can buffer the cortisol response to stress. Unlike GABA and L-theanine, Relora has a cumulative effect. So I recommend taking this one directly before bed, or if you regularly experience stressors near your bedtime, like getting the kids in bed for instance, take it then. What we're hoping to create with this adaptogen is a buffering effect on your stress hormones. Over 4 weeks or so, this buffer will help that diurnal cortisol response to stay consistent, smooth, and declining appropriately just before bed. Incidentally, this buffering response has also been studied to have an effect with post-workout recovery. I read a study where the DHEA and growth hormone of athletes significantly increased taking Relora right after their workout. What the study didn't tell you is that you should be ready for a nap. So I worked out over my lunch break, popped 2 Relora, and then woke up on my work keyboard an hour later. So there's that. The last capsule or supplement I'll talk to you about is caffeine. No, caffeine's not going to help you sleep, and that's why I'm talking to you about it. Generally, if you're having trouble sleeping, you're probably also over-consuming caffeine in order to make up the energy difference. Hey, fair enough. I'm sleep deprived. I'm living off of 3 cups of coffee a day. I'm not going to tell you to put your caffeine down. But what I am going to do is to warn you not to consume it after 12 p.m. In many bodies, the cortisol spiking effects of caffeine can take up to 8 hours to dissipate, which means that caffeine consumed later than 12 can still be influencing you as you're trying to sleep at night. Now, there's a genetic component to how quickly you metabolize caffeine out of your system and how much it disrupts you from an anxiety perspective. But as a blanket recommendation, if you're having trouble sleeping, then limit your caffeine to the first half of the day. So if you want to stop sleeping like a chump, know your capsules. So those are the 5 C's of sleeping like a champ: curfew, curtains, cool, carbs, and capsules. Set a bedtime, close your curtains, drop the temperature, limit the sugar before bed, and if you need some supplemental help, know how to use those intelligently. But knowing this information is not enough to change things, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody who shares your house with you overnight. Getting into amazing sleeping habits is a negotiated process of communication. It's amazing to me when I ask guys how much time they spent talking to their spouse about sleep habits this year, and then juxtapose that with how much time and energy they spent planning Valentine's Day. They're not even comparable. Look, if we're going to get to bed on time, have great curtains, turn down the temperature the right way, limit our carbs, and take the right supplements, it's going to be a team effort. And the thing that you spend 30% of your life doing, that is sleeping, is something worth talking to your significant other about. As an example, let's say you set your bedtime arbitrarily at 10 p.m. and you hope to get up for the gym at 5. That's great, but what if your wife wants to stay up and watch her show? What if you waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning with your alarm going off and bumbling around trying to find your gym clothes wakes her up and makes her angry at you? What if you didn't prepare your protein shake the night before and the blender wakes the kids up? Well, now you've gone and done it, man. So my advice is, set some goals around improving your sleep quality and quantity. Bring these 5 C's to your significant other, and then talk through with him or her how you both can work together to benefit from incorporating these guidelines. Chances are it'll be a little bit of give and take and a little bit of trial and error. But if you can get 1% better sleep tomorrow than you did last night, and you could continue that trend for the next year, then by this time in 2020, you will have significantly impacted your ability to recover from your workouts, to remember what you read yesterday, to be a better father, better mother, better person in your community. And you might stop craving carbohydrates and having garbage energy all the time. Make sleep a priority. Be loud about it. And follow the 5 C's to sleeping like a champ. And to you parents out there with a new infant in the house, my heart goes out to you. I feel you. I've been so exhausted. The baby sleeps right beside our bed in a bassinet, and I love him to death, but the little punk grunts and whines all night in between his feedings. So he's sleeping good, but the noises he's making is keeping us up. And the other night, I finally had it. I got up and picked up his grunting self, bassinet and all, and walked out of the bedroom. My wife's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it." And I put him in the closet in the foyer and shut the door. And then I slipped back in bed and started to fall into a nice deep sleep. And then I shot up. Holy crap, the baby's in the closet. What the heck, man? And I went to get out of bed just to see that he was still sleeping beside the bed. It was all a dream. I was pretty relieved. I laid back down, started to fall asleep, and this is how you know I'm really sleep deprived. I started thinking, the closet would be a great place for him to sleep right now. #DadLife. I'll be living vicariously through you as you put these 5 C's to sleeping like a champ into practice for you and your household. This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names. To help us leave a legacy of health and fitness for our kids, go to www.patreon.com/definingdadbod. We've got great rewards for you there, and even $1 a month is appreciated. Patreon.com/definingdadbod.